watching the football matchup from Toronto, where the Argonauts play Canadian League football. With the ball we throw and catch and run and put equipment on and knock the poop out of each other. Yeah. Where Chad Kelly's playing quarterback. I think they said he's Jim Kelly's nephew or something like that. He might be. I'm not sure, but I thought I heard that. I'm watching the Ivory Coast play Germany. Yeah, I do have kind of a. I'm largely German, yeah, but Germanic, of course, because Anglo-Saxon British were Germanic, but kind of pulling for Ivory Coast. Origin thing. I'm just kidding. No, I like the German team. I like the kids. They seem like a very grounded and kind bunch. Yeah. so I like this team they have. But you can't help but kind of pull for the kids in the Ivory Coast, you know. You have kind kids from a nation that exploits and manipulates with technology and economy. And then you have kids, going out there and fighting like hell to make lots of money because they live in an exploited country. So I kind of always pull for the exploited country over the mechanized. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like when U.S. plays Turkey, it's like, you have a little tinge, maybe pull for, they play Jamaica. I kind of pull for Jamaica a little bit more. You know what I mean? I'm just that way. I was born an underdog, hey underdog, and so I always do that. And it's nothing personal against the kiddos that play for the large incorporated nations that manipulate the world through what they perceive as domination through the invention. Okay. So, it's nothing personal. It's just, I just have this tendency, it's just me. I'm just, hey, underdog. When Polly's in trouble, I am not slow. It's hip, 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 and away I go. Inside the secret compartment of my ring, I fill with an underdog secret energy pill. So, yeah, I just always have that in me. So you guys just got to understand that. But when they were talking about the stuff, they were talking about, the little girl, and they say this a lot. And it's not so much of a Sheldon, you split an infinitive and all that kind of stuff. Because my mom had that too, and I drove my mom crazy because I was most of my friends spoke Spanglish and Ebonics. Okay, and so I spoke Spanglish and Ebonics. So it's good, it's all good. Where you okay? Where you finna go? Okay, what you finna do, right? And so my boy Bob, it's with. Like what? Yeah, whiff is something you do when you strike out at wiffle ball. That's like, shut up. I know it's with. I just say whiff. It's just how I speak. I say whiff. I mean, I'm fitting to go somewhere with you. Whiff, yeah, with you. I know how to say with. Okay, I just say whiff because that's how I speaks. Got a problem with it? Okay, well, if I'm fitting to break you off, she's right on. So I just, and Ebonics and I get accused of, I fit in real well when I was in the South because they speak largely Ebonically because they country folk. And most of them are poor and raised side by side with the black folk. So they have similar dialect to them, Eat yet? No, chew, to, so it's very similar. So, and that's just part of my genetics, especially on my dad's side. Where my mom comes from Ellis Island immigrants that had some more, ba-na-na-na-na-na, boom, 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 and stuff. And where my dad's side, it's more like, tater, tatter. Would you understand what I was saying there? You do some weeder eater and, get it done. You know what I was talking about. Well, then why are you splitting hairs? Well, split an infinitive? What the hell's that? Okay. Do you know what I meant? You know what I said? All right. See, so what's important, okay, is the actual meaning of words and phrases. Okay. not the letter of the law, but what it actually means, right? The intent, the meaning, you know. I love you, Porgy. Don't let 'em take me. 'Cause I's got my mans, right? The intent, the meaning. 'Cause I's got my man, right? There's more meaning, more understanding, and I's got my man. Instead of saying, the man whom I want to procreate with is you, dear Porgy. Right? Okay. So, I's got my man is she wants to be with me forever. She wants our souls to mingle eternally. You know, get to meet somebody on a playground, and So Earl, but it's like you just you do understand life's eternal and grace is infinite. Okay, you can tell by what's set up through wealth, perceived as wealth and aristocracy. They've known this for tens of thousands of years, long time, right? Okay, and so knowing that, okay, that they that people have done this, and there are no secrets when it comes to truth of science and mathematics. Okay, and technology is getting way better. Okay, at being able to eliminate all the manipulation bullshit. That's why we have artificial general intelligence. No, guys, do not vilify Jeff Hinton because he does something. Finish it, Flavisham. Okay. If you guys attack my dog Jeff, I'm gonna kick your butt. Okay. Do you understand? I'm critical of Robert Oppenheimer, and Madame Curie and her husband and all that stuff. It's like, just tell them no. You get somebody else to do it. We're gonna kill you if you don't. Go ahead and kill me. We'll kill your family too. Okay. But at least we won't invent a nuclear weapon that mass murders the Tularossans and then the Japanese and the Okinawans. You mean you'd rather have us kill you and your 15 offspring and your siblings than have you build a nuclear weapon for us that can mass murder millions? I'd rather either or. I'd rather live the Lord's Prayer and stop being abused by a bunch of psychotic assholes. But now that we have quantum computing, that's much more tangible than it's ever been before. Do you understand? Okay. And so you got to understand, like I was watching the thing that said the world is watching. It's like, no, the world ain't watching. They always say that stuff, but the world ain't watching. Contrary to popular opinion, there's not as many people in the United States watching the World Cup as you would think. Yeah, it's here, and there's more marketing, and there's more people stimulating businesses and stuff than ever before. So more people than usual. Last the other year 4 years ago when it was in Qatar. Okay, and not many people in the United States watched it, depending on how involved Mexico was in it. But they didn't Argentina win? And people just really, go goo over Lionel Messi because he's a little guy. And a lot of people can relate to that. It's like, well, so was Diego Maradona and so was Romario. What's your point? They were little guys too. Yeah. He's the greatest of all time. He's very good. He's very good. You got to understand, the best I ever saw was a man from Brazil, and his name was Pele. Okay. And just with his ability and his pace and his talent, he was dominant from the time he was 17. He dominated, 17 and 21. He dominated both those World Cups. I mean, no one could even come close to the guy. And then he had to become a cash cow, and they didn't have the same sports medicine, the same stuff back then, and then it just beat the hell out of him to pay everybody's bills. Okay. And that's radically changed with sports medicine and technologies and stuff for marketing for that kind of deliverance from the poverty. Okay. So, you can't compare Lionel Messi to Pele because they're from radically different scientific interactive generations. Okay, but the best I ever saw, and I don't know about a lot of you too, was Pele. Okay. He was the best I ever saw. I mean, he was amazing. Okay. He was so dominant. Okay. Just because of his pace and his ability. And he was very his confidence, he's a lot, that's what I think people like about Lionel Messi is his confidence isn't arrogant and overwhelming. And Pele was that way too. Okay. He had a modesty to him that endeared you to him even more. Okay. You liked him even more because he was, oh, shucks, man. I'm going to say thanks. It was a nice goal. He had that kind of personality to him to where you're like, God, I really like this guy. And so you just, Slice Alone knows he made a movie with him about, he's just that type of guy. Okay. There are some guys that are really good at athletics and they know it, and you don't like to be around them because they're real touchy and, I'm the best. And there are some guys that are really good at athletics and they're like, well, shucks, Just so happens my parents got together and they had good genetics and I can kick everybody's ass in just about any sport I want. That's why I quit, because they get really mean. It's a lot more fun to hang out and talk with that guy than it is, hey, you don't know, I was the best. They're just, hey, if they hadn't have done that, I would have won more. I just quit. I didn't want to win. I just want to live the Lord's Prayer. And then, do Ruby Red Dress from Helen Reddy. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Just leave me. You know what I mean? It's funny. But, I'm that type of person. I don't want to fight you. Okay. And remember that kid in Fort Huachuca that was, trained people professionally in martial arts and stuff. And he came to the store and he said, I want you to train. I want to fight you. I want to know what it's like to fight Bruce Lee. I was like, I'm not like Bruce Lee. No. You have a beautiful little, gorgeous little brown wife over there, with cute little, kids like quite a few of my kids, and I love your wife, want her to live peace, and I want your kids to too. So, if I have to fight you, it's because you don't want to live the Lord's Prayer, and I don't want to fight you. No. The way my body reacts and the way my body does things is radically different to people that train excessively to be successful at it. It just happens. Shit, what happened? He just flipped over he went like 5 feet in the air. How did that happen? And I didn't even know it. My mom had to explain it to me. Earl, well, Mom, that was a scary movie. As Stranger Calls. And he was in the closet. That could really happen. That's creepy. She's like, Earl, did you see what you did? Yeah, you almost hit the ceiling. Well, Ma, have you been doing, gymnastic stuff with Rodney? No, it was a creepy guy. It's kind of like Rodney's size. He was upstairs in the thing. He killed the kids. He called her. Then he gets out of prison after getting getting on reason of insanity. And then she goes out to dinner for her husband. And then he calls up at the restaurant and says, "Have you checked the children?" And then they get home and he's saying, "You can't see me." And he's next to her in bed because he's knocked out her husband and put him in the closet. That's creepy, mother. It's like, oh, So I jumped over the recliner and I flipped, when he popped up next to her, my body reacted and like when Bob's mom threw the knife at my thigh. And I flipped over the couch and Mike said, "That was the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. You were lounging on the coffee table and you went and you jumped up in there. It was cooler than a Bruce Lee thing, anything on a Bruce Lee movie." It was like, I had to do it. It was, and then Bob's mom yelled at me and said, "That's a brand new damn couch." I said, "Yeah, but if I would have took it in the thigh, you had a bleed out." She goes, "Blood I can get out. That's a hole." She got mad and then she threw a coffee mug at my head because I was arguing with her. And I said, "But I didn't do anything." She says, "You're a hero of him. If you weren't here, he wouldn't be here annoying me." It's like, oh gosh, she thinks like a woman. Okay. And so I'm like, shit, we're just better off leaving. And as the coffee mug shattered in the laundry room and we're running out of the carport, Bob's all like, what did you dumbasses do to piss off my mother? I was like, I was just watching the baseball game. That's all I was doing. I was just lounging. He was getting obnoxious with her. And then what? Well, then she said, if my stupid ass wasn't here, he probably wouldn't be here either. That was her logic, right? And I'm like laughing, going, shit, you can't argue with that. It's like, and my thought was, I think if I wasn't here, he probably would have pissed you off even more. The funny thing is when she threw the knife, I'm the one, hey, Mike. And he was leaning forward, messing with the stuff on the coffee table. He did a wheel slide across the coffee table. And my foot was resting on it. And I went, oh, shit. And I pushed up and went, and Mike turned around, looked at it, and goes, that was the coolest thing I ever saw in my life. Okay. Earl, did you see what you did? No, I didn't. I didn't see it. Okay. Too bad we didn't have cell phones back then. Don't mess with the bitch in the basement at Phoenix College, right? Especially at her own house, right? When she has access to weapons. She's weaponized AI. Oh, gosh. She'd reach for something and throw it. Well, for our case, she had the big knife thing with the wooden. She grabbed one and gave it a throw. I was like, "What do you think? You're Big Ed from Redheaded Lil with the Springtime in Alaska? I mean, god damn, what is it? Shit." That was one of my best friend's mom. Yeah. Okay. That's why when I got yelled at by Sergeant Cyril's and you don't throw knives. I'm afraid of you. He goes, what? They knew, but they were laughing. They were going, dang, this kid, he's cool. He's cool as the other side of the pillow. Yeah. It's all good. It's like, no. She threw a knife at me. It was like, yeah, but you did a backwards judo flip that most people can't do and would train their whole lives to be able to do it and not be able to still do it. I'm like, yeah, I know. I lived my life. I was there and people told me about it and explained it to me. I didn't see it. When you do it, you're not watching it. You're just doing it and you feel it. But people come back to you and say, that was the most amazing thing I've ever saw. No, it's not true. Why? Because we're not living the Lord's Prayer. When we're all living the Lord's Prayer, that'll be the most amazing thing you ever see. Okay. And so that's why it's so important not to be erroneous with your speech. Okay, the world is not watching. Okay? The world does not watch. Okay? Don't limit your perception, okay, of the world to you. Okay, like my grandpa used to say in an old Irish limerick, sure, you'd be right in thinking your sunrise rises and set on your ass, but it does on everyone else's as well, right there. Sure, you'd be right there. Right. And so that's one thing you have to be very cognizant of and very aware of, okay? That the world rotates around the sun, and your ass is on it, and so is everybody else's, okay? And when you're healthy, we all have healthy bowel movements, and our asses do what they're supposed to do, and they make a good cushion to sit down for extended periods of time because you can rest because you did what you had. You worked good, so you can enjoy the good of your work there, right? And for most of us guys, I don't know what it is about women, and it's like that's where they poop, but it's like, oh, they're so fun to play with, and it's, I don't know what the deal is with the the buttocks and us men with and a female buttocks, but maybe it's just because it's in close proximity to where we reproduce with our reproductive parts, and it just makes us feel like So there's nothing wrong with feeling that way, and you're not a bad person or a pervert, okay? That you enjoy female anatomy during acts of sexual intimacy and reproduction. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a pervert. Okay? A pervert is somebody who forces their own will on other people because they're selfish. That's a pervert. When a girl comes up and says, I love you too, and then you're dreaming with her tonight, there's nothing perverse about that at all. What's perverse is when she is ripped away from the one she loves because you guys aren't living the Lord's Prayer and you're fighting and killing over money. That's perverse, right? So you got to understand erroneous speaking and how to speak properly, especially eternally. Okay. You know, I'll be loving you eternally. And Roger Whiskers won't have to sing songs for money and go out on the road and then, lose everything to his wife and the pool boy in court because he didn't have a prenup. And she gets the kids and he gets the boy. She gets I don't know. She gets a house in the garden. He gets the boys in the van, right? That bitch took me for everything. I have to go live in the onion fields in Oxnard, right? You understand? And so don't be like that. Okay, do not be like that. Change the way you perceive things. Change the way you think, speak, and act. Okay? When people talk about this is an illusion and that's a different dimension, that's just, guys, quantum computing and AI does not alter reality. It merely alters your perception of reality in relative terms. Okay? But reality is still reality. Okay, that's a data center. That's a quantum computer. Here's your brain. Here's your brain on fentanyl. Okay, you're going to have bad forms of communication if you're abusing each other of money and someone tries to scrape it by ODing with fentanyl. That affects everybody, and especially the people closely related to that poor soul who feels trapped and there's no way out except to try to destroy the brain activity through a drug. And that's wrong, right? That's why the little kid Julian in El Paso sings the songs that he does, because he's empathetic and he feels things, And he lives in a town where there's lots of people that are, he grew up, and during the COVID, they didn't correct the brain activity. They tried to cover up the bad brain activity with a genocidal operation, and kids growing up in that close proximity to that are emotional and believe in Jesus, they feel that. Okay? So he's a really good kid. He comes from empathetic parents and has empathetic siblings. Okay? So you got to understand, especially if you're in close proximity to me and you're praying to Jesus Christo, you're praying to the guy who is a molecular structure that is most like Adam, Moses, David, Jesus, John. Okay. And so I understand when people, you're not God, you're not Jesus. They want to do that to save me from the torture of nobody living Jesus. And if you believe in the magic show, you believe in all the stuff they're doing at the military installations in order to manipulate us with money and technology. And you can't believe in that. That's wrong. Okay? Did they get another offside or a foul or something? Okay. Okay. So far, Germany's scored 2 goals, but they didn't count. Right? And Ivy Kroos just scored 1, and it counted. I saw it was a good goal. Yeah. Oh, he tripped him. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. The ref called the foul because he tripped that rangy quick hit for Ivy Kroos, so there's no goal. Okay. Yeah, I get it. And the guy from Germany's looking around and said, no, it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious. The big, I think it's number 7 kid or whatever and stuff, he had the ball and he was making a play on it, and the German kid tripped him. He didn't tackle him, he tripped him, and so, yeah, it was a foul. So at least the good thing is he wasn't very heinous, so he didn't get a card or anything like that, so. Okay, but, okay, guys. So it's very important to understand, to avoid erroneous speech. It's not being like Sheldon. I'm surrounded by people that are like Sheldon, and that think their speech is better than my speech, and they understand speech better than me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do understand speech better than me because you have a virtual presence in his house. Yeah. And Headliner's not going to challenge you to a game of horseshoes. Okay. Tennessee. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Tennessee. Okay, Chumley, let's go see Mr. Whoopi. I'm sure you do understand speech better than I do. Okay? But I understand eternity better than you think you understand speech. Trust me. I'm not being arrogant. Not at all. But I am obnoxious, and it's often quite funny if you understand old Don Adams cartoons, right? Would you believe? Missed it by that much. Okay. All right, guys, I love you very much. Let's load this one up. We'll get more across the day. We're trying to be very productive today so we can help people speak better. And, I am not in any way, shape, or form wanting to make anybody in the world vulnerable to mechanized technology that's lethal. Okay? I want you to protect yourself from yourself by thinking righteously, speaking righteously, and then doing righteously. Right? That's the only way to protect our planet and species from the destruction of human selfishness and the delusions of human selfishness. Okay. There's not another dimension. Don't listen to all that crap, stuff like that. You're just being manipulated by invention, and then they're giving you a perception of that manipulation as being your reality. Don't listen to them. They don't know what they're talking about. I'll help you out here. I'm a pretty intelligent guy. Okay, I love you. Okay, peace out, man. We'll talk later, all right?